Thank you so much to our previous speakers. Now, up next, our next speaker actually argues that buying Bitcoin is not enough. Bitcoiners need to mine. He believes the missing step to real Bitcoin sovereignty is mining. So, right up next, we have Kent Halliburton, CEO and founder of SAS Mining. Please, a round of applause.
Thank you. So do I? Wait a sec. Is there a clicker? Excuse me. Is there a clicker for the stage?
There should be
Looking for the magic clicker. For slides? I know I have a slide deck. There should be a clicker somewhere. Hailing one magic clicker. That's all right. I love being on stage and not having any material. And I'm not going to stand up. That's
anyone
not my
from
calling.
our team staff that could please bring a clicker to the stage?
Yeah. You can pull up the first slide of the slideshow too. I can start my intro while I wait for that clicker to show. Yeah, eat the microphone, I was just told. Does that help? All right. So, there, okay. First slide. I can get going while we wait for that magic clicker to arrive. Whoa, hey, too fast. Go back, please. Is there a clicker where I can control the show? All right. It will arrive on stage at some uncertain moment here. Let me get started though. So my name's Kent Halliburton, CEO and co-founder of SAS Mining, and I'm going to talk to you about why Bitcoiners must mine. Not that we need to or that we'd like to, but we really must. It's not so optional as you may think it is. And I want to lay some foundation for that in a couple of slides, but before I do, I actually just want to just take a moment to appreciate being on stage here in El Salvador. The first time I came to El Salvador was for a surf trip in 2000. And literally, there was a missing generation of men from like 15 to 25. And what men I did see in that generation, most of them were missing limbs. It was violent. I literally saw a knife stabbing while I was on the street. I came to surf. It was also some of the best waves I'd ever caught in my life. Came again in 2013. Country was a lot better shape then, but it wasn't the era of Bitcoin. And now here I am in 2025 on stage helping to participate in this technology that this country has adopted that I would argue is the fundamental driver in its transformation. And it's absolutely mind-boggling to me, not only to witness what the country has done from 2000 to 2025, but to also get to be on stage and participate. So yeah, thank you for being here and thank you for listening to my talk. I guess I'm gonna hail out the calls since I don't have that magic clicker. Can we go to the next slide to talk about why Bitcoiners must mine? Talking to the back, thank you. All right, so when most people talk about mining, or Bitcoin, excuse me, not mining, they don't realize it, but Bitcoin's actually two novel technologies. The first is the one that we all talk about and we all know is very meaningful, the decentralized, uncorruptible ledger that allows me to transfer value from here in El Salvador down to Patagonia if I want to, or Australia, New Zealand, India. Nobody can stop me. But the second one that was invented on the day that the first Bitcoin block was produced was Bitcoin mining. Because mining is a decentralized money printer. Never before in human history have we had a way for the common man to produce their own money, and now you do. It is cypherpunk to be able to produce your own money using hardware, electricity, and an internet connection. Anybody can do it. Now, if it's profitable, that's a different question, but anybody can participate in Bitcoin mining, and that's radical. Next slide, please. So, sticking with foundational concepts. We discussed Bitcoin, inventions there. What is a Bitcoiner? I said Bitcoiners must mine. Well, a Bitcoiner, I use a simple definition, and this is not an agreed upon definition, but most people, when I present this to them, say, yeah, that makes sense. So a Bitcoiner is someone that voluntarily chooses to save Bitcoin for their future. And I use the word choose and save very intentionally because it's a voluntary choice, so it's not compelled. People are opting into Bitcoin and out of fiat through this choice, and they're choosing to save. And saving I'm an expat of about 12 years. I live in Peru currently, and before that Portugal, and before that I traveled to something like 30 countries. I've gone to a lot of places on our planet, and I will say that people save for the same reasons across the board, and those are largely biologically driven. The first is for housing. We need some way to shelter us from the elements. The second is education. We need some way to either educate ourselves to be able to produce a valuable service out in the marketplace to earn a living, or maybe we're helping our children to get educated. But savings is often used for education. Marriage is recognized typically throughout the world as the beginning of a family unit. Friends, family come together to give witness to that, and that requires costs and money. Still eat it better? Okay, thank you. Keep giving me hand signals out there. I am watching. Fourth is retirement. So after, if you've lived a long, successful life, you've reproduced, your children are out there, you don't want to be a burden on them, so you need savings to cover your retirement. And then the last is the one that most of us think about using as kind of the first step in savings, which is for emergencies. You got the rainy day, you need to cover your emergencies. Next slide, please. What is not talked about very often is how we've gone about acquiring this hard form of money that we are going to save, though. And this is a bit of history that I would, if you get no other message from this other than the fact that you must mine, it's that how we've acquired our Bitcoin has changed over time. I just met a guy right before this meeting that he was a circa 2010 era Bitcoiner, and he got his Bitcoin by mining it. Almost everybody that I have ever met from 2009 to 2012 acquired their Bitcoin by mining it. So why did we stop? We stopped in 2013 for two reasons. One, the ASIC came out. And the first ASIC coming out meant that it became more difficult to mine. So competition got to a point where you needed specialized hardware that created more friction. Secondly, Coinbase opened its doors. When Coinbase opened their doors, they were the first to create an easy way to buy Bitcoin. The timeline split. And there's downstream consequences of that change to how we acquire Bitcoin. These unintended consequences, the first ones are that the community is divided. I don't know if I'm the only person that is personally been invited to the not the exact, but to be a speaker at two conferences that are occurring right now. Mining Disrupt is happening in Dallas. Mining Disrupt is a community of miners. You won't find any Bitcoiners there. You come here, you won't find any miners here. Maybe a few. Let me just say, take it back, give a caveat there. But we're largely a divided community, and that's created problems, in my opinion. One of those is buyer amnesia. What I mean by that is most of the buying community doesn't understand what mining very well at this point, and I think that that's actually had some unintended consequences. And then mining centralization, which is something we all worry about in the Bitcoin community. And I've got an entire slide on mining centralization, so I'm not going to go deeper into that topic at this moment. But why? Why did we stick to buying? Well, I gave the friction points, but I think that there's actually some reasons why it has stayed that way up until recently. Convenience, I already touched on. Coinbase makes it easy to buy, as do many exchanges at this point. But there's been a mining community failure as well. Most of the mining community has focused on acquiring Bitcoin for themselves, and those that have tried to provide a service haven't earned the trust of the marketplace. So we've not provided a good solution to allow access for the common person to be able to acquire their sats through mining. Third is supply and demand. If you want to buy a lot of Bitcoin, or if you want to acquire a lot of Bitcoin, you don't do it through mining, you go to an exchange, because you buy hardware when you mine. And it's going to take a while to generate the Bitcoin from buying your hardware. So supply and demand. The fourth one, though, is exchanges do represent competition. If the majority of the revenue of an exchange is acquired through the transaction of fiat to Bitcoin, then they're not particularly incentivized to push people into mining. It would be a disincentive even. So let's talk mining centralization, these problems that we all care about, and talk about some of their actual impacts and why we need to take the network back. Sorry, I'm still getting better about keeping my hand in one spot. Miners on the network right now, the majority of the hash rate is there using Bitcoin as a stepping stone to acquire more fiat. That is the truth. And you can see this. The best example of this is the publicly traded mining companies, right? They have a fiduciary responsibility to return fiat, not Bitcoin, to their investors. So by definition, they're looking to use Bitcoin as a stepping stone to get the dollars. You can see in the numbers, though, that the downstream consequences of that is not aligned with the network itself. We have 48% of the hash rate, I pulled this data yesterday to double check it, in 2 mining pools. This doesn't count all the proxy pools that actually put their hash rate to AMP pool as well. So there's only 2 throats that need to be choked before a double spin can occur and the confidence can be shaken on the Bitcoin network, and all the value that we're saving in Bitcoin may be jeopardized. That's a serious issue. 75% of rigs right now are being produced by one company, Bitmain. Now, arguably there's solutions on the horizon to both of these, but to me, the fact that we don't talk about this, and we're talking a lot about cores versus knots, is a problem. This is a bigger issue. This is substantial. This is where we can have a state actor attack us. So I've given a bit of the moral case, but I want to give 2 other reasons why it would be good of us to mine. One is economic, and the other is strategic. So let me get into those arguments. So the first point I wanted to make is Bitcoin mining is the only way to generate Bitcoin. I want to say that again because it's really simple, but it took me about a year in mining to realize that. Bitcoin mining is the only way to generate mining. So you put dollars into an investment and it's going to produce Bitcoin. That's not a dollars in, dollars out argument. So therefore, a traditional ROI approach doesn't make as much sense. What actually makes more sense is to say, what's the price of the sats I acquired by mining as compared to what it would cost to buy those on the secondary market on an exchange? And the answer is, oftentimes it's a discount. So if you just look at the energy cost, this is an example of an opportunity we offer right now in Ethiopia, a hydropowered data center. For $150 per month, you can generate 280,000 sats. Simple division gets $53,000 per Bitcoin. Now that does not include the hardware. I'm being very specific. This is your energy cost averaging approach. The hardware itself typically has 1 to 2 years to recover the initial investment. So I'm not trying to hand wave that away, but I want to say that the fact that we look ROI instead of looking at how does it compare to buying, I think is inaccurate. Second, you're generating these sats from the protocol directly. So they're wild. They're not produced from within they're not purchased from within the banking industrial complex, right? And there's advantages to that, and that drives actually a lot of demand for what we do. But the last is, if you're getting more sats for your dollar, well, you've got a shorter time to fiat independence, because I do think that that's the individual self-interested mission most of us have, is we're trying to stack ourselves out of the fiat economy. So alignment does matter. This is back to the moral case, right? If our social layer has more skin in the game, we would not allow the mining centralization to occur. In fact, I would argue that all these mining centralization issues that we currently have would not have occurred if the majority of the Bitcoin community had ownership of the network, right? We just wouldn't have allowed that to have happened. That means that the network will become less reliant on fiat hashers, and the protocol will become more decentralized over time, and the community will be more unified. So these are all very positive reasons to get involved with mining. But the strategic reason is, and this is one that not everybody agrees with me on, but I believe the governing psychological imperative for how we interact with our Bitcoin is driven by Gresham's law. No different than the Romans and the merchants on the street when the denarii was being, the coins are being clipped. It's where the idea came from, right? Is the good money gets thrown in the cupboards and hoarded, and the bad money is what gets spent. And I would argue you can see this in effect because right now the store of value thesis is truly being played out. This is the first cycle that we've had where as price has gone up, the number of Bitcoin on exchange has gone down. That's a new dynamic. So arguably, if there's $96 trillion worth of global M2, and there is only 2.4 million Bitcoin on exchange, it doesn't take very much of that capital come in and swoop that up. Of course, the price would go up. I'm not arguing that, but just the value of what's there as compared to the liquid money sloshing around, it doesn't take much for that liquidity to all dry up. Oh, I've got a clicker? Okay, I've got two now, that's fun. So the strategic case to mine is really driven by the fact that the buy phase is going to come to an end at some point, and getting a jump start on the earn phase is an advantage. So as I wrap up here, I want to talk about this photo for a moment, because this photo I find to be very inspiring, not because of the picture itself or the fact that it's a cathedral. I mean, it's a beautiful church. I'd love to visit at some point, but for the fact of what it represents in human capability. So this is the Milan Cathedral. It took 570 years to build, and I cannot imagine us as a species anywhere on the planet right now setting out to build a project that will take 570 years. The problem is, that's exactly what we're doing in this room. Bitcoin is that multi-generational project that we have to have last for hundreds of years if it's going to truly be successful in helping us overcome this fundamental issue where we've never been able to get past centralized money printing and how it's constantly corrupted our societies. So it's not just an opportunity, but a responsibility for not us, but our future generations. So I don't really care if people choose to mine, genuinely. There's BitAxes, the movement of people getting involved and just getting their hands on and understanding mining through BitAxes has been wonderful to see. There's hash rate heaters that people can plug into their homes. There's people that are figuring out how to power their saunas with hash rate heating. You know, all these are wonderful. We represent one option, and I'll tell you just a moment what that option looks like, but we came to market with the idea. I had a decade in rooftop solar before I came to mining, but I saw that nobody had applied a software as a service approach to mining. And if you see all the classic Web 2 businesses, that's what they did. And I thought, well, geez, why don't we try to do the same? So we spent a year building a platform and then attached our first data center to it. Now we have 4 data centers on 4 different continents that we offer mining opportunities to. And we always promise that we're not making money from hardware or electricity. Instead, we figured if we can't make you Bitcoin, we shouldn't get paid. And we wanted to do that to earn more trust in the environment out there, because there'd been a lot of trust broken with false promises. So unless we can produce Bitcoin for you, we're not getting paid. And then it's your rig, it's your Bitcoin. We don't have custody at all. So you come to our website, buy a mining rig, serial numbers, it's yours. We take care of the maintenance. You pay the electricity bill and the hardware. You keep 85% of the Bitcoin. That's how it works. And we provide, with that alignment of incentives, quite a world-class customer experience. So as Jeff Booth, which was one of the inspirations for me building this business, says, Bitcoin is hope. It's the bridge to the future. And I would encourage everybody to plug in a mining rig, turn it on, and stack yourself out of fiat. If you would like to talk more with me or anybody else that's on the SAS Mining team, there's 4 other members here. Just look for this little logo on our shirts. And we've got a meet and greet actually back in the Network Effect green room. Basically, if you go to the main hallway down to the right, there's a TV screen on the right underneath there. Go back there. We've got a meet and greet available. But thank you so much for being here and paying attention to me. I appreciate it, and look forward to seeing you out there on the network.
That was great, Kent. Thank you so much.